Hello everyone and welcome to Geopolitical Trends. So excited to be with you as always. As an analyst, I ask, what should we make out of the recent developments or agreement that is between Saudi Arabia and China to swap the yuan for the riyal? Interesting development. In this video, I'm going to provide you a brief analysis about the economic implications of this agreement and place this analysis for you within the context of the changes taking place on the global geopolitical landscape. So let's dive in. China and Saudi Arabia recently agreed to swap the yuan and the riyal, or the yuan for the riyal, that is. So the central bank of China and Saudi Arabia announced that they have now agreed to swap local currencies worth about 50 billion yuan, the equivalency of $7 billion US, or 26 billion Saudi riyal. As relations between the two countries, China and Saudi Arabia, sort of continue to improve. Saudis, as you know, Saudi Arabia, that is the world top oil exporter to China. And China is the world's largest energy consumers. So both of them have worked out now, they've been working out for a few years now, and they expanding their relations beyond just the hydrocarbon cooperation or the petrochemical industry and so forth, to include now security and technology. Major developments. The China's central bank said in a statement, and I quote, that the agreement will be valid for 3 years, expandable with the consent of both parties, end of quote. So, as an analyst, how do I read this? Well, this basically it will have so many implications in a good way, that is. One, it will strengthen the financial cooperation between the two countries, Saudi Arabia and China, as they expand the use of the local currency. And second, it will only promote trade and investments beyond what is currently at. Because it is the trade between the two countries, it's not bad, it's very good. And this is where I see that then there is a third element to all this. The reason why they wanted to decide only on 3 years. They wanted to see the reaction, of course, of the United States, what it will be. Remember, all the petrodollar transactions are conducted in the US dollar. And the second aspect to do has to do with the reaction of the global market. This is the way I read it. Mind you, that Saudi Arabia has been already invited to join the BRICS. And this is like the beginning of what lies ahead or what's coming. So the move, in my opinion, aims to ensure, of course, beside ensuring liquidity and exchange rate stability. And if that happens, of course, it will reduce the risk of currency fluctuation for importers, exporters, and the financial market dealers writ large. That's the way I see it. Mind you, just to give you a reminder about the economic ties between Saudi Arabia and China. Well, according to Chinese custom data, China imports about 65 billion US dollar worth of crude oil from Saudi Arabia in 2022, just last year, which is account for about 83% of the kingdom of Saudi Arabia, that is total export to the Asian giant, to China, that is. But at the same time, we should remember that Russia remained China's biggest oil supplier as of October last month. So despite higher Russian crude prices, Saudi's import fell about 2.5% from the previous month, as the Saudi Arabia continued to cut supplies. Because remember, and I did a video for you guys, both countries, Saudi Arabia and Iran, decided to cut about, I think about 3 million barrels or so, if my memory serves me well. That's from the overall production till the end of the year. So all this has to be put within the under the microscope, under the microscopes of the really international relations, especially the bilateral relations between China and Saudi Arabia. Well, the Chinese president, President Xi, told the Gulf leaders of the Gulf states in December, which is the last meeting they had, that China will buy oil and gas in yuan. That's what the President Xi told the leaders of the Gulf. But China has not yet used the local currency to buy the Saudi oil. Now, could this agreement mean between the swapping of the yuan for the riyal meant for the payments for the oil? What do you think? So Beijing is believed to have the world's largest network of currency swap arrangements with at least 40 countries. Yes, you heard me. 40 countries that China has the arrangements with, but rarely disclose the broader terms of the arrangements, which is, it's entitled to that if they don't want to disclose that. As long as it's done bilateral and the other country agreed to it, there is no harm done. So, but there is a reason to all this why China is going with 40 countries as far as swapping the currency. Because China is trying has been for some time now to strengthen the yuan, not to make it to the point of replacing the US dollar. There are those in the West that are saying, oh, China wants to replace the dollar. No, China is not interested in that. But that does not mean China is not interested in strengthening the circulation of the yuan. So this is what the Chinese have been doing because the yuan's role in the international trade has become some sort of 2-point dependent. Because remember, in 2016, the Chinese yuan has been added to the basket of currencies. But the reality suggested from that time forward that the dependency on the yuan was far less than what the Chinese expected. So, and this is one of the reasons why China is thinking in these terms, because it wanted to become less dependent on the US dollar. So, because we all know with the sanctions US impose on countries, so now China is thinking differently. And this agreement between China and Saudi Arabia, it's only indicates where the thinking in both Riyadh and Beijing is. This is the way I see it. And also China wanted to ensure that the energy supply is one of the reasons for the currency swaps, because China needs a lot of energy. So, more than about 2 months ago, I believe, if I am to remember, the Bank of China, because I do remember this one, I read an article about it. The Bank of China, and I will post the links of the articles for you guys, opened its first branch in Saudi Arabia, in Riyadh. This is a move to expand the use of the yuan aimed at growing economic deals between China and Saudi Arabia. It makes perfect sense. So, and this is what was about more than 2 years or so after receiving the approval from the Saudi government that they will be willing to move forward with this. So here is my final note, because I want to keep this short for you. And by the way, guys, if you would like me to expand on this on a live stream, just leave me a comment. Let me know that you are interested and I will be happy to do it. So here is the way I see it, a brief conclusion here. The move is part of a growing series of economic activities between China and Saudi Arabia. We've all been hearing how the relationship is strengthened. You all remember when President Xi visited Saudi Arabia and they rolled the red carpet for President Xi, in comparison to when Biden went over to Saudi Arabia and he has the fist bump with between Biden and MBS, which was very sort of bad optically when you look at it. So the bilateral relations between Saudi Arabia and China is described as their best, are in the best stage ever. And I can testify to this because as one who spent time in the Middle East, I was aware of the relations at that time. That wasn't openly between China and Saudi Arabia, and we were wondering at that time. That was during my days when I was still working for the government. But all this has to do with after the visit of President Xi, who had a state visit, which means an official one, last December. Well, that's what I said. You all remember when they rolled the red carpet for presidency. So what do you think of all these developments? So make sure to leave me your comments, because I always like to read your feedback. And by the way, guys, if you like the content of this video, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. I will greatly appreciate it. As always, remember, geopolitics impact your daily life in more ways than one. Till next time. Bye-bye.